Well, welcome to part two of the afternoon's festivities. This is a panel discussion. We're going to be talking about all facets of the food industry with guys from all facets of the food industry. And the first of these panel discussions is roughly going to cover things like organic growth of these companies, markets, brands, and regulation. And actually, before I introduce the panelists, I do want to say one more thing in tandem to what I said earlier, and in addition to what Ron Paul said before, which is we also, at Food Processing, do a list of the 100 largest food processors every year. We just published it in our August issue, and I have a bunch of copies here as well. But in it, in addition to sales, some of the things we look at, 15 of the top 25 of these food and beverage companies recorded lower sales in 2009 or in early fiscal 2010 than they did in the previous year. Lower sales for 15 out of the top 25. Yet 18 of those 25 had higher net earnings. So in putting together that report, I think we came to the conclusion that people saw the worst coming. They saw the recession coming maybe as early as December of 2007. Certainly during 2008, they prepared for the worst, and maybe not quite the worst happened to them because they came through 2009 with lower sales and higher net earnings. And some of that is also attributable to a whole other subject we probably won't be able to get into, and that's private label. A lot of these companies were doing lower cost, lower value products, but more of them as people traded down from, not just from restaurants to food, but from higher priced food to private label foods. Anyways, our panel this afternoon are these five gentlemen representing all parts of the food industry. I'll introduce all five of you, and then we'll go into your individual bios. Salim Basul, who is chairman and CEO of the Middleby Corporation, a manufacturer of food service equipment. Kevin Brown, president and CEO of Let Us Entertain You Enterprises, of course, the leading Chicago restaurant firm. Liam Colleen, CEO of Farleys Sailors Candy Company. And that's pretty self-explanatory. Christopher Myers, CFO of Kehe Food Distributors. You have to tell us why it's pronounced Kehe and not Kehe. And David Miniat, president of Ed Miniat Incorporated, a classic South Chicago meat packer. And Salim, you want to start?
Well, I thought I would start with a small slides and a video of our company if you're not aware of what we do. And maybe that's a good introduction to us. 7 million pounds of potatoes are fried in our fryers.
1 million
every day.
pigs are grilled on our broilers.
1
daily.
out of 3 restaurants in the world have our equipment. I think that's a little bit tells you who we are. We are the largest cooking equipment manufacturer in the world. And we used not to be like this. When we started the business, most probably many, many years ago, we used to be like everybody else, a Me Too company in commodity products, trying to equip a full kitchen. In 1999, 2000, we shed over half of our business. We let almost $100 million of revenues go away, and we decided that we're going to be only on what we do best, which is cooking equipment. So we shrunk from almost $200 million to a little bit less than 100 million in 90 days. And we decided to become what we call the Mac versus a PC, or the iPhone versus a cell phone, a regular cell phone. So have you seen from those awards from all our companies, we are a technology-driven company on the cooking side, and I think this year will be close to $750 million company, and it's due to our global presence. It's due to our innovation. I see many of you might know Middleby. I know some of us are customer of ours sitting in the audience here, and I know Kevin has used our product in his restaurant many, many times. So we really affiliate ourselves with the best. And great restaurateurs now use our equipment for speed, for energy efficiency, for ventless, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is our story. Thank you.
Would you hand me
Have
that
this frequent
clicker,
flyer,
please?
Miles.
Would you hand me that clicker, please?
I think we have these queued up in order, so we go over to Kevin Brown from Let Us
Correct.
Entertain You. Tell us about your company.
We are a privately held restaurant group here based in Chicago. There it says we have 39 different concepts. We have today 83 restaurants. We're in 11 states. We have about 6,000 employees. And as I like to say, we put the word fun into dysfunctional. We do very casual things from Wow Bao to Food Life, which are $6 and $7 check averages that serve thousands of people a day, all the way up through our steakhouses, our Wildfires, our Joe's, our Shaw's, all the way to our True, our L2O, Everest, a one-time Umbria, Eiffel Tower. We are primarily 60% of our business is here in Chicago. And then the rest, we have a strong presence in Las Vegas. We've got a strong presence in Minneapolis. We have restaurants in DC and Atlanta and Arizona, California, and the Pacific Northwest. We use a lot of Salim's equipment. We love his equipment, and we are proud to be home base here in Chicago.
And Liam Colleen, tell us about Farleys Sailors Candy Company.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's not Elle Woods.
And the Steak Company.
You can just stay up there if you want.
Those are great restaurant concepts.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Here we are. Thank
Here
you.
we go. Well, Farleys Sailors is a relatively new company founded on a carve-out acquisition of Farleys Sailors brand assets from Kraft in 2002. I'm not sure how this is, where should I direct this? Right there. To ground you for a moment in the confectionery business, and it's an important detail when we talk about Farleys Sailors, that I focus you in on non-chocolate confectionery, sugar candies, some of which you have on the table in front of you. Overall, the category is a $29 billion category in retail sales, and it has proven time and again to fare well as a category through the kind of economic cycle that we've seen in the last couple of years. So despite the gloom and doom, indeed, the confectionery business has continued to post growth, and it's worth saying that some of the recent growth is the function of some pricing action, and it's one of the things I think that's interesting to talk about what's going on the raw material side of food businesses at the moment. But the category itself is healthy and has been over years and continues to grow. The non-chocolate part of the business is roughly a $9 billion business, but what you can measure in the market is $3.5 billion of it, and that's because a lot of candy sales are made in places that you don't really think about. Small locations, think Little League baseball camps and swim meets and the places where kids are lining up to buy products. So there's a very complex distribution network. That I only show it this way to give you an impression of the scale of non-chocolate compared to chocolate. And that's because Farleys and Sailors since 2002 has essentially acquired its way into being the leading non-chocolate or independent non-chocolate candy company in the States with more than $600 million in revenue now. We employ some 2,700 people. And it occurred because of the structure of the non-chocolate market per se. It's a category that has several hundred companies competing in it. And over time, the consolidation that's gone on in retail is making it difficult for small companies to compete over time, which is a situation that we have levered to build our business. And so I think a lot of the names you'll know of our brands, these are probably things you'll remember from your childhood, and I guess it's also most likely the last time you consumed some of these puppies. So Juju Fruits, Chuckles now and later, and you'll see some names there. And I think most importantly, over the course of time, the acquisition of Brock's Candy made at the end of 2007 was really a transformative acquisition for the company. We didn't go the way of Salim, we went the other way and doubled our business from one day to the next. That's difficult. I think it's difficult in both directions, right? So it's, but this is what has brought us to where we are today. Let's see what else I got in here. You'll find, just to give you an impression, it's by now a business that is broadly based in terms of a brand portfolio. We are spread. We have a pretty well-balanced portfolio. And part of what it allows us to do, I think uniquely in the space, is that you will find one of our products in virtually every outlet that's out there by way of distribution. And this is perhaps the most difficult thing to do in the candy business, is to put your products in those situations when consumers are in the mood to consume. You need to be part of that set, which means you need to be part of the 300 out of the 50,000 products that manufacturers make. So it's the key to the business is being at the point of purchase when the consumer is ready to.
Hey, Liam, before you go on, sorry to interrupt, but I've been fascinated by this. Is that pie chart on the right truly drawn to scale? Is Menards and hardware stores, home centers, that big a part of your business?
The pie has grown to scale, but I didn't place the names of the retailers.
Oh, okay. Sorry, no, but it is a growing part of distribution of food.
It's really interesting because you'll find, I mean, certainly in that pie, and Menards would be one good example, but we have really well-developing businesses with retailers like Staples. I would have said Blockbuster, but let's not talk about that.
Toys R Us?
Toys R Us, and you can go on from there. Food, particularly confections, is distributed in places that you don't really think about, office vending machines and so on and so forth. So it is hundreds of thousands of points of distribution, and so it is. We don't in confections have the same dominance of a Walmart, for instance, that many more traditional food companies do have. I don't know what else is on this reel. Okay, so I think the other aspect of our business, we manufacture out of 6 locations. which is in part a function of how we came into being. The acquisitions, for the most part, brought us companies that quite often had plants and facilities attached. But when we talk about food safety, it is part of our approach today to have plants that can multitask and are qualified for multiple products in the instance that we have an issue, that we can concentrate our efforts on solving an issue in one location but not stop the business. So it's designed by now to be, for our level of sales, I think pretty efficient for how distribution goes in this market. Operating out of 6 locations. We returned Brock's to Chicago a brief time ago. Sales and marketing office now in Chicago, headquartered in Round Lake, and I'm pretty sure that none of you have ever been there. This little town of 50 people or so. It's really, you can be my guest in the winter time. I will be very grateful of your company at the Ground Round for the double chicken breast, double broccoli. Great, I think that's it for me.
Christopher, yes, Chris. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Myers, the CFO of Kehe Distributors. We are a $2 billion distributor of natural and specialty food products to primarily the supermarket space, but also to the natural food channels and also to smaller specialty food channels. Our customers range from Walmart on one end to Whole Foods on the other end to every big and small grocery store chain in between, including Safeway, Super Value, and Kroger. We have a relatively complex supply chain. We buy 60,000 different products from about 3,000 different vendors and distribute them to over 30,000 different retail locations throughout the United States and Canada. We do that through 9 warehouses in the US and 3 in Canada. We have a couple of other small businesses that we participate in as well. One being an internet fulfillment business where we serve as the online fulfillment center for various vendors and other retailers online. We have a small chain of health food stores on the west coast of the United States. And we also the primary shareholder of about a $200 million branded foods company, as well as an import/brokerage company. So we are primarily ESOP owned, but we also have a minority shareholder who's very supportive, Prudential Capital, who's in the audience here today as well. So that is Kehe.
And finally, David Miniat of Ed Miniat Incorporated. Oops. Yeah, point there.
Let's see, I am, I guess, the South Side Chicago meat packer. And true as it is, those are my great-grandfather's trucks. And that's my grandfather driving one of those trucks. So our company is an old company. I'm a 4th generation. We're about 100 years old, and that's probably only about 3 blocks from where one of my plants still is, so we really didn't go far. But our company did start back in the days of the book Upton Sinclair back in the late 1800s, and back then my great-grandfather was a meat peddler. Today the business is, we have 2 businesses. One is South Chicago Packing Company, and one is Ed Miniat Incorporated. The businesses, we're a family-held company. Our revenues are a little in excess of $300 million, and we employ approximately 500 people. So the different businesses, Ed Miniat Incorporated is a value-added processed meat company. And what we do is we bring in raw products, so beef, pork, and poultry, and we process them, and primarily that's cooking. And we sell those to, we have 2 markets we serve. One is multinational or multi-unit national restaurant chains. Examples would be Subway, Applebee's, Chipotle. Those give you different degrees of you know, where fast casual, family dinner style, and then you also have sandwich chains. And there's a handful, not more than a handful, but there's a number of them other than that. The other side of the business is the other half, or roughly half of our sales, goes into the manufacturers that Dave was talking about. We produce pre-cooked value-added meats that go into Nestle's frozen foods, into Lean Cuisine and Stouffer's, Heinz Smart Ones, ConAgra, and Healthy Choice, and so on and so forth. So we supply most of the processed foods that go into those kind of branded processed food companies. This business, you know, I put up here some of the competencies and some of the things we do, and I can go into that later if there's any questions about it. But you know, we talked about food safety, and food safety, I know David mentioned earlier that it may not keep some people awake, but it does us. It does me and my family. It's, this business is, in a family-owned company, is probably more than 80% of our family's wealth, and a foodborne illness is something that could destroy a company our size, particularly in the business we're in. We take in product that is thought to have pathogens. That's raw beef, raw poultry, and it's our job to deliver those products pathogen-free that go to a consumer that's actually, that people like Nestle and Heinz and all those guys will put their brand on our finished products. So our food safety and our programs and that issue is extremely important to a company like ours. This business, as far as scope is concerned, produces about 1 million pounds of product a week. Some of the competencies that's important for a company like ours in this would be our product development and culinary expertise, our customer-focused service and quality. We need to be flexible as a manufacturer, well, I mentioned flexibility, but the customer service and focus is extremely important for a smaller company of ours to be of value to the customers that I mentioned to you. That's our plant in South Holland, Illinois. So the other company is called South Chicago Packing Company, and this company is a company that we refine oils, animal, vegetable-based oils, primarily animal oils. And we bring those in, and we have many types of value-added refineries, but with respect to the food side of the business, we deodorize, we package, we caustic refine, and many different types of refining processes. And those will end up in, customers would be Continental Baking, IBC, Interstate Brands Company, which would be Hostess. Cream fillings are made out of our products. Banquet pot pies, some of the crusts have some of the products in it. Popeyes cooks their products in our oils, and so on and so forth. So that gives you a little bit of scope of where those products are used. Again, large bakeries and restaurant chain accounts. And we also, by the way, there's also pretty good sized non-food business part of that. This would be our products actually find their ways into candle manufacturing, wax coating on corrugated, fire log manufacturing, the chemical industry, and for surfactants, and so on and so forth. Scope of this business is we process about 6 million pounds a week of oil. And that's the plant in Chicago. And that's our mission, so that's about it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make light of food safety before, because, as I said, especially when you're dealing with animal protein, you know, an incident can kill people and can put you out of business. As what was the New Jersey meat packer, Tops, put out some ground meat a couple years ago, and you know, don't bother suing them. They went out of business. Hundreds of people out of work, you know, a couple of people dead, millions of dollars in liability, and the company's gone. Anyway, we have, I'm going to be asking some questions of the whole panel. Some will apply more to some of them than others, of course, but at any point along the way, if you have a question you'd like to bring up, there's going to be a question and answer session at the very end, probably around 4:30. But if you have a burning question that's really relevant to a topic that's being discussed at the moment, feel free, put up your hand, try to get my attention somehow, throw something at me, and we can ask it now rather than waiting till later. Oh, well, we pick up Salim's papers.
Okay.
I do want to ask the first question, and it's, I apologize for it being complex. I promise it's the only complex one I ask, and it's a three-parter. But it's a good lead-off for this. To all of you, what do you recall as the highlights, financial highlights of this current year, so far anyway? How do you think the final quarter of this year will play out? And what's the outlook you see for the year 2011? And Salim, you're the closest one to me, so...
I will rather defer to Kevin since he's my customer. So I would rather hear from him.
Right.
So all
Very
depends
good.
on how he's my
whatever
customer.
he says,
Of course,
you might want
whatever
to
he does
Yeah, right.
benefits me.
Actually,
And
especially
maybe
with...
whatever David does
In
benefits me because we are most probably my equipment is in yours too.
Yeah, it is.
In
Right.
juxtaposition to what Ron Paul said about the restaurant industry, do you mind, Kevin? Go ahead and start out.
You know, we've been
How's-
fortunate. We were talking earlier before the panel started that we are really based on confidence. If our customer, our guest, feels better about things, they'll go out to eat. And when our business got softer in 2009, it was a little bit less about less people going out to eat. They were actually just spending less. Yes, they didn't go out to eat as much, but what we're seeing is that our traffic is up, as well as our check averages are up. And to us, that's confidence. And what we saw early on in 2009 was our wildfires and our Joes would slip a little bit, but our Food Lifes and our Wild Bows and our Big Bowls actually would go up. So it was not unlike what you saw with Chili's. You know, they went down, but McDonald's went up, and people just started to spend differently. They're certainly going to eat. So what we're seeing is a little bit more rebalancing where we've been. For us, we think you drive more sales through constantly reinventing. And we've reinvented a lot of restaurants. We keep changing menus. I mean, we have our own in-house web design, our in-house menu design. We have artists. There are menus, and the test kitchen is going 7 days a week. There's just something going on all the time. That if you don't just keep reinventing yourself, you sort of let business take advantage of you instead of you taking advantage of the business. And I think that's, for us, there isn't any one seminal moment that says, well, that's been a highlight of the year. What we found is Valentine's weekend, for us, since then, we have been up every week since that. The first 6 weeks of the year, we were heavily impacted in the east with crazy weather. We had to close restaurants because of the snowstorms. And then Las Vegas got cold. I mean, not cool, it got really cold. And that affects us because we do a lot of volume out in those markets. But right now, we're seeing a lot of things come back. You know, we're starting to see our fall and our holiday bookings are up. We're anticipating that our gift card business will be up. We had a promotion that we do for our frequent diners. We have 140,000 guests in our frequent diner program, and we do a special mailer in the summer to them, and we've had a phenomenal response. So I'll be honest, I'm encouraged about current business. I think the key is going to be, what do we do going forward? I mean, how aggressive can we be in growth? How many opportunities do you want to grab? That's probably, we're still a little hesitant on that. We're doing a lot of conversions of existing places, which we've done historically, and we historically do them in these types of periods that we're in. And then I think as we see even more confidence in the economy, I think you'll start to see us expand yet again, even a larger scale than we are now.
What's that say to you?
Well, it's interesting. I think Kevin talked about two things. I'm going to first talk about a specific thing that happened for us. In our business, our international growth continues to be very solid. 20% to 22% of our business is now coming from international, and it's growing at double-digit growth. We continue to see the double-digit growth of the international business for us, specifically emerging markets, where we are the dominant player in China, we're the dominant player in India, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, to continue growing very, very much. We're talking about US chains and local chains. We talk about East Bay, for example, to just give an example, East Bay would be in China, which would be a combination of Panera, Starbucks, 200 stores. They are growing extremely fast. We are the full supplier of cooking equipment for that chain, based in Shanghai. We look at our chain in Crepaway in the Middle East, which is 50 stores and growing. Those chains are not stoppable. They are extremely adopted the concept of the US chains with local taste. And we are so well positioned in the emerging market for this. Pizza Corner in southern India. We do all of that, 58 stores, growing, opening up 10, 15 stores this year. So our international business is very, very strong. Domestically, the fast food business continues to be extremely solid. The fast casual has revamped. Casual dining continued to be impacted. And we'll talk about it in just a minute. However, institutional business, which is schools, correctional facilities, and government, whether it's military or government offices, are doing extremely well for us. And then the food processing is booming. We recorded now the third quarter in a row of 30% plus growth in the food processing business, which was dead the last 2 years. And now let's talk about casual dining. I take an example of Let's Entertain You. We have right now almost between 18 to 19 casual dining concepts that are changing their concept immediately in the next almost 18 months to dramatically change their store outlay. And I'll take a great example, which I have to commend literally Let's Entertain You and Kevin. In that case, he took Osteria, which is one restaurant, split it into a pizzeria before, and now he just added in the same place M Burger, which is I would say, a fast casual concept, high-end burgers. So we're seeing tons of chains on the casual dining coming to us saying, what do I need to do? I have a 4,000 square foot concept. How can I split it or make it smaller? How can I go non-traditional? And the cooking equipment are a key because you're changing the menu. And they need to know, what do I cook? Now I was cooking mostly traditional food. I want to go into finger foods. So we're seeing a significant amount of casual dining transformation that will most probably reap some huge results for us in the next 18 months.
We'll come back to the idea of changing products too, but outlooks, Liam, how's the year going to be?
It's, I think it's going to be a year of two parts in the candy business, and that's not really a change. And if you think about how we set up for the year, most retail at large, and I think Chris would say so, turns over what they present in store generally in January of each year. So you're coming out of the holiday season and there's a restocking and a new approach for the year. And in the candy business, that will then roll through Valentine's Day and into Easter before there is a bit of an off cycle through the summer months. And we're now heading into our busiest time of year with the fall season that brings first Halloween and Thanksgiving, a lot of gift giving, and into Christmas. So you can split the year more easily in confections, taking the summer as the end of a full year. In that regard, like the first half of this year was, I think, just more concerning than the past has been. Across the entire category, we could see a relative slowdown. Still growing, but at half the rate the category had been marching along in prior years. And I think that's also reflected broadly, I'm sure Chris can comment on it also, that retail generally, I think, is soft. And you have major retailers calling out comp store sales declines, and some for really the first time around on very rare occasions, Walmart being one of those. So just a lot of noise about the economy, overall trading conditions. Now put that behind us. You know, the second half of the year is shaping up extremely well, at least for us. And we are the market leader of seasonal non-chocolates. You know, so it starts with our candy corn here, and please eat your pumpkins and don't give up on our candy canes and so on. But you know, because of the timing involved with those, we can see what's expected at retail through our order book. We start producing those products months in advance, and we're extremely robust right now, and that's the tone that we're seeing as well at retail, because you know, these guys, much like Kevin is chopping up a restaurant concept, you know, they're not paid to sit on their hands, and that they're developing new strategies and new approaches. And you know, despite what might be considered a soft economy, you know, it's when I see the names of retailers called out, who's up and who's down, I can speak in every instance to the strategic intent of those retailers and tell you why a Kroger is up relative to a Super Value. And so, you know, it's not by accident that Whole Foods is marching forward, that there are winners and losers even in soft economic times. And, you know, so broad brush stroke, if anyone tells you that they think it's going to be up or down next year, I want to meet that person, because frankly no one knows. And you're absolutely right that we all guarded our businesses. I think everyone kind of saw something coming, and if they didn't do so, well, perhaps they ought not to be in that business. I mean, I think everyone took it kind of serious and hunkered down and will weather this time and are prepared. It would be an interesting question to ask how much of us have doubled down our investments into innovation and things for the future, because that's certainly what's going on at our company at a rate that we've never taken on before. So we're not, you know, waiting around to be told, but it's done and dusted. We're proactively looking to drive growth also in our business next year, much I think as Kevin is. I think, you know, Dave said to me earlier that he's also growing this year as he did last, and intends to do so next year. So you know, I think this is, however you find your way to it, this is how we'll build our way out.
David, what about the meat business?
Specifically, our business, we've had a good year, and we're going to finish strong, and I see it up next year. I think it was mentioned by Liam or Kevin earlier about new product development, creativity. That's what really, I think, is driving a lot of where I see activity going on, particularly in the restaurant chains or in the restaurant industry. I see a lot of people that are trying to steal customers from one another, or stealing from from home, eating at home, whatever it may be, and I think that there's a people do that with new, creative, better products, and so I see a lot of. I also believe that the good quality operators are the ones that survive in an economic condition like this. You look at McDonald's, you look at Burger King, and I think that there's a big difference about last quarter's earnings. So I see that happening all throughout. We happen to be fortunate. We work very closely with Chipotle. We started when they had about 14 stores. They've got 1,000 now, and they're a wonderfully committed operator that is run by a chef. He's not a businessman. He's never claimed to be. He's a culinary. He's a chef, and that's why that company is doing as well as it's doing. So it's just, I think that it's the unique companies that are running that are doing well that makes a difference.
Chris, I don't know your business well, but are you masters of your own destiny, or are you highly dependent upon, you know, how they do?
We're very contingent upon the retail
Yeah.
market, and when Ron was talking before about how the retail space was down in 2009 and flat in 2010, that's pretty appropriate for our base business. We managed to grow in 2009, but it was more of driven by market share gains than it was our retailers actually experiencing growth. This year, we're pretty reflective of that space as well, in terms of we're about flat on a year-over-year basis. we see pockets of growth, and it varies dramatically. We have all those retailers mentioned above in our portfolio, except for A&P. Super Value is getting hurt. Safeway's maintaining some storm. Kroger's doing well. But where we're seeing the growth on the retail space is actually in the discount channel, especially Walmart, Meijer, and those chains that we have that are experiencing a lot of growth. On the product side, there's pockets of growth and there's pockets of slippage. On the higher end specialty food product lines, we're seeing some slippage there. But where we're seeing the growth is generally in the wellness area. Gluten-free is up over 20% for us on a year-over-year basis. So we see pockets of growth. The key for us is maintaining or staying on top of what the trends are going to be in the retail space and making sure we have the product portfolio to match those trends.
And speaking of trends, and a couple of people too mentioned innovation. And Liam, you're doubling down on innovation. Who drives innovation? Do you, as based on your technology or new product development, or do you? And I mean this to all of you generically. Do you follow the consumer trend? Are you looking for clues from the consumer as to what you need to innovate into?
Yes and no. I think there are broad trends that develop over time. At least in confections, it's generally our belief, my belief, that people's behaviors don't change that much that quickly. Now within that, just as Chris mentioned, there can be pockets that can give you a faster growth rate. It may start from a small base, the percentages look good, but the absolute shift in business, it may not be that dramatic. And there are trends that you can choose to innovate around, where you might say it's more consumer-led, that, for instance, might play into a developing interest in be it organics or whole foods or perhaps less sugar. The fact that so many Americans are type 2 diabetic and so on and so forth, and can pick up on the headlines. Yes, you can build there. And broadly, the same brands that were market leaders 30 years ago are market leaders today, and you see a lot of innovation that may be as much to do with packaging and how products are transported to consumers to increase their relevance and their usage. So it's more about the occasion. As marketers, we can explore those things all in a structured and in an organized way. So we do consider the importance of the things we hear from consumers in a structured innovation process that will consider hundreds and sometimes thousands of ideas, and in an organized way filter those down to the ones that are of most relevance to the market right now, or at least we believe so. And it's not, there is a fair amount of art that comes with the science, but it's a process. And certainly, it's not just for our company, but I think most consumer goods companies of any scale approach it in a pretty structured, routine way. Yes, there's a lot of creativity in it, but there's a lot of practice in it as well, and structure to it. And so it's an and both. I mean, we can hear of these things, don't necessarily react to them to say, oh, this is the next hot thing. We will try to scale that and assess what is the potential of that and how quickly will that develop and how could we best deliver our brand. I mean, you can't, in that regard, despite a trend, be all things to all people. So we do also have to reflect on what we own as a brand portfolio and see if there's an opportunity for Brock's to represent, as an example, a new product to consumers for a certain occasion. So it's both. We listen carefully to the market, and we have a very deliberate process by which we create new products.
Anybody else?
Ours is a little different. We produce products for people that we don't have any brands, but we participate in the development of those brands. And there's no question that the companies, the food processing companies and the restaurant chains continually, one of the ways that they save money over the past is they have not added a lot to their product development teams. And they really lean on the suppliers, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think that there's been more and more of that, and more, quote, the term partnering that's been used for many years. Well, I truly believe in these economic times that they have really worked through that with some innovative suppliers. And I think that that's where over one of the investments we made a few years ago is we built a culinary center, and we have 2 full-time chefs. And really, it's all about ideations and bringing in new food ideas, to these customers.
I think we look at it as sort of creativity drives the business. I mean, if we're not being creative and making changes, I think your business just goes backwards. And for us, it's never one big thing. It's always thousands of little things that you're doing. It can just be a section on the menu. It can be, as we call it, I think we're being responsive the past 2 years. What Salim was talking about, well, we were a little leery maybe of spending $4 or $5 million on a new restaurant. We've opened up a handful of restaurants for a couple $100,000 where we've cut out like an M Burger out of True and cut out a section of Osteria, and we've used up square footage. So you have to be responsive to the times. You have to say this is what the times are now. If you remember in the 90s, the early 90s during the Gulf War, that recession, everybody was doing noodle shops. Well, this one, everybody's doing burger places. So I think everybody's just kind of responsive to the times, because in 2006 and 7, everybody was eating prime steak. Well, now no one's eating prime steak, and they're already eating short rib. So you've just got to keep changing. And meatloaf, well, meatloaf is always around. But I think you just got to keep taking, we always have 8, 9, 10 concepts that are always in development of evolving what we think the guest will tell you what they want, and they'll tell you what they don't like. But you always have to be evolving. You always have to have innovation. And also we come to Salim and we say we need to be very sensitive about labor. Particularly a lot of our concepts, it's about time and money. They don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of money. How fast can I get it to them and still give the quality? And we've got to be smart about saving energy and saving labor as we put it together. So you can have all the creativity, but the ultimate creativity is doing something that makes you money.
Kevin, I would like to add what makes you unique, because I can tell you the success of a restaurant concept, especially after the last 2 years, is the speed of execution. I would say when you came into M Burger, for example, you did not test and test and test forever. They took some chances, they knew what they wanted, and the speed of execution took place very fast. And which was not, today you can't afford to test for 3 years to make the concept right. And we're learning now that if you do not execute and implement at a very high speed, and you have to do it right, you can almost guess on 20%, 80% has to be right, and you have to implement it most probably the fastest that I've ever seen. I think that was the case in your
And also, I think you can never stop tinkering. Once you get something new going, you just can't leave it alone. You have to stay with it. And I just use an M Burger as an example. We've just stayed with it. We've changed it. We're modifying it. We just keep fixing it, because you can't ever get it perfect before you open the doors. We get it as close as perfect to what we think is going to be perfect. But in all of our places, you just keep reinventing as it goes along.
Well, all of your places? I mean, how much can you, M Burger certainly, but how much can you innovate and how much can you change an Everest or an RJ Grunt's? It's, that's an institution.
We redid the salad bar. We have all new sandwiches. I mean, certain basic cores at RJ Grunt's have to stay there. But you can always be testing and making sure that you're keeping the quality at a certain level. So sometimes innovation is just keeping an eye on it, making sure it goes to the next one. No, you can't reinvent what we always do at Grunt's. But Everest, always there's new dishes that can come out of an Everest, only because of the chef's creativity and what he sees when he travels around the world. But it's taking areas of the menu and saying, what's the one item on the menu that's not selling as well? Let's get rid of that and let's replace it with somebody we think is going to sell better. So you're really kind of cull from the bottom, and you hope you're going to refill and put things at the top.
And how does a tree of life acquisition fit into your business model, fit into innovation in a company like Kehe?
The Tree of Life acquisition doesn't, I guess I'd answer the question twofold. First, our company actually lives in the new product space. Any new products that come to retailers that make it into the mainstream retail stores usually come through our distribution network. So we actually spend a lot of resources being able to go to different shows around the world, looking for new products all the time. And we have a relatively rigorous process in terms of how we analyze it. We analyze it both in terms of the qualitative aspects, is the taste profile correct? Do we believe the category is a good category to be in? Do we believe in the management teams that run the companies? Do we feel like they're going to be good vendor partners for us going forward? We also have a quantitative aspect when you look at new products in terms of, we look at all the Nielsen's and Spins data for the category and try to anticipate whether the growth trends are going to be right for those categories. We'll look at products that are very similar to, or as similar as they can be to the products that we're evaluating and see how successful they were in the different retail networks. But the biggest characteristic that we will look for when we take a new product, or decide to take a new product into our distribution network, is whether it adds something to that an existing product or doesn't have. It has to be creative, it has to be new, it has to be different. We don't want just a new salsa with a different label on it. We want something that's new, different, and creative, and that the consumer is going to be attracted to.
A couple of people mentioned brands, and it may not apply to everybody, but how important are brands to you? How important is the maintenance of the image of that brand? How much do you tinker with them? Liam, your brands, like you said, have been around since our childhood. I guess part and parcel of that question is, what do you do with a Chuckles? How do you make a profit on a Chuckles? Do you take it as it is and decide you can make it better or cheaper than the previous owners could, and you can make money on it, or do you aggressively market the hell out of it and try to bring it to new heights where it never had been before?
Yeah, I think generally brands are no different than restaurants, and they have to be cared for over their entire lives. And when they're not cared for, as is the case with some of the brands that we acquired, most of them actually, you can see, as we saw, that they decline. And I think it was said earlier, there's no such thing as standing still, and that's been my experience over 25 years in the candy industry. If you're not growing, you're actually decreasing. There's no such thing as sitting in the middle and enjoying what you have. So in that regard, it's a constant work to re-express and to innovate around brands or around businesses. But I think you have to understand what can work for you within your business. Certainly, Chuckles came to us from a prior owner that could not handle something as small as that specific brand within their portfolio of much larger businesses. So you have to decide what business you're in, indeed. And I think the change that Slim mentioned in his business, it was a very courageous move, but I'm sure it was completely obvious at the time the decision was made that you have to decide what you can be the best in the world at, and you go after that. When we talk about something like Chuckles, though, we or some of our other brands, they're coming from places that either could not concentrate on them because they were too small, or come from another example, Bob's, a family business that simply cannot handle the secular trend shifts in getting to market. So, the fact that the route to market has become so complex and consequently so expensive that from a small base in Albany, Georgia, they have to accept that if they stay in that business, they will exit eventually in bankruptcy. And that's a very tough situation. So even at Chuckles for us, when we look at that, and it's a relative small part of our total portfolio, the fact is it comes from an organization that has a very small sales force and plugs into one that has one that is relatively large. And across our portfolio, we have technologies, particularly on the packaging side, that enable us to put that product in distribution in an appropriate way, whereas the family business did not have the equipment or the possibility to do so. So it's a number of things, you know, say, is it about the brand or is it about the cost side? It's all of it. You look at it as a total business, and we can leverage a much larger infrastructural platform to take even that business forward, which of course, you know, a Hershey could do also, except it's too small for them. I mean, that's not the business that they're in, and it's very much the business that we're in. And so it's not rocket science per se. Some of it is just recognizing that, you know, what you can really do well.
Liam, I'm going to add a little bit. Let me talk about brands from our perspective, because I spent almost 90% of my time on branding. I remember, Ron, I don't know if you remember, in 2003 or 2004, I went and had dinner or lunch with you at the Sears Tower. And at the time, Ron is basically, for me, has been a mentor for me, and he is literally the expert on food concept for many, many years. So I came to him and said, Ron, how is Middleby being positioned? How is our brand? He said to me, Salim, your brands are superb. Because remember, we had shed all the other brand and we had bucked the trend where everybody else, all our competitors still today offer a one-stop shop. That means they offer refrigeration, dishwashing. And I remember his comments to me. And I will tell you what he told me. He said, Salim, brands are about two things: quality and pricing. Quality and pricing. And I remember that lunch. And he's sitting here today, which is fantastic to recall that discussion, because when he told me about branding, and he said, Salim, you have Blodgett, you had Middleby, you had Pitco, you had Magic Kitchen, and they are great brands. Today, when I talk about quality, we have a no-quibble warranty. That means any of our product you buy, for a year, it doesn't perform to up to specification, we'll take it back. There's no competitors who matches us, none. Remember, those are used pieces of equipment. Those are big pieces. Taking back, it's not returning a pen to Costco. Number two, on pricing, I listened to him, and I've never seen a brand that is top brand priced lower. The least is the cheapest. A great brand is usually, in our case, we believe we are 15 to 20% higher than anybody else. And we keep our distance from anybody else. Now, against us, what do you get? You get innovation, you get support, you get service. And that's important to us. So from a branding standpoint, if we have a product that's commoditized, that is basically, it has to be at the same price of our competitor, we get out of that business. We don't stay with it, or we inject R&D in that project, in the product, and it has to be disruptive to be 15 to 20% higher than any of our competitors. And that's what took us through this recession, which was very difficult. In 2009, the first tendency was what to do? To discount. To take a great product that's packed and discount it. We haven't done that. And we told our customers who stuck with us that we're going to offer you the best service, the best feature, and the best warranty in the industry. And so many people say, why do you keep the no-quibble warranty, which is expensive? Because at the end, people return it because they use it for a catering in the summer, and they return the piece to you. We take it back. It's part of our DNA. Our no-quibble warranty is untouchable. And companies are bigger than ours, like ITW and Dover, who compete at a smaller scale against us on the cooking, don't even offer that. So, Ron, thank you for this great lunch together. So,
Who paid?
he paid, because I couldn't pay. He paid too. And I said, he said,
It's about 100 million.
you know,
Those were lean times, weren't they? Anybody else on the subject of brands? If not, we're good. We're good. But you were talking earlier about being having sales all over the world. How does the rest of the world impact all of you? Is it? I want to go back to my notes on it. Is it? A source of potential competition and infiltration, or is it all world stage for you? Some new markets. I don't know how much reach some of you can have, but what's the rest of the world mean to you?
Well, the rest of the world is growing faster than the United States for us.
Yeah.
It's been for a while. Our market share around outside the United States is 3%, and we are growing very fast. So would like to be close to what we have in the United States, which is in the 20-25%, and we can accomplish that. Emerging markets are growing extremely fast for us. Number two, I think that, well, first of all, it's more profitable. Our sales overseas carry around 15% higher margin because we act as a dealer and distributor and service overseas. In addition, we tend to go after products that are very localized. For example, we have a patented rice steamer in China that is unique. We have a patented tandoori oven and samosa fryer for India that is patented for us. So we have products that are very unique for those markets. In Scandinavia, with the acquisition of Huno, we developed a unique bakery oven. In the Scandinavian countries, they love bread. So we control the bakery business through our Danish manufacturer. So if you look at what we've done, is we took some products that are US based, but most of our growth has been R&D and engineering in the local markets. For example, right now we're rolling a Middle Eastern type of a pizza oven that is patented for the Middle East. And there are, in the Middle East, it's called manakish, which is a special pizza made throughout from Egypt to Turkey to Lebanon to Jordan to Saudi Arabia. There are around 280,000 stores that produce that product. Today, what they do is they put in, it's like a deck oven that's manufactured locally, unsafe, highly wasted of energy, and they have to mop it every 6 pies they put in because they generate steam by. So we created a unique product in the market that's automated, that is highly energy efficient. However, I couldn't take my pizza oven from the US. Let me give you the perspective. The US market likes that pizza to be chewy. In the Middle East, they like their pizza to be like flatbread, totally broken. They like to break it and like it burned. And a wood burning oven, they can't afford. They can't buy a wood burning oven that you would see in an osteria. It costs $40,000 or $30,000. So we developed a product, automated, that delivered pizza exactly the way that local deck oven does it. It does it in high speed, and it costs half the price of that deck oven, and our margin are 50%. The key is to take a $1,500 oven, replace it by a $750 oven, and still make 50% margin. The team in the Philippines developed that oven for us. And so what we've done internationally is we have our decentralized R&D teams. So we have an R&D team in India that developed the samosa fryer and tandoori oven. We have an R&D team in the Philippines, in China, and now we create an R&D team because of the growth of the Middle East, in the Middle East. And then we have ours in Italy and in the UK and in Denmark. So we've decentralized our R&D now in emerging markets. So that gives you a little bit what we've done globally. So it's not as easy. The barrier of entry are very difficult. Today, I can tell you, GE, if today they decided to go after our business, they cannot. Simple. Jeff Immelt, if he decide today to put $10 billion and go after me, he cannot. Why? It's simple. We have expertise and connection with our customers. We have sales and service in the emerging markets where our people have been there for a while. We also have R&D centers of chefs that have been in continuity with our customer, which makes our barrier of entry in this business phenomenal. But it took a lot of time. It took investment when nobody was doing it. We entered China now over 15 years ago. Our Philippine plant is 16 years old. Our R&D team in the Philippines is over 20 years old. Over 20 years, we've learned all the trends in the emerging markets. So it's very difficult to somebody throw money at it and say we're going to compete against Middleby. The same in the US. What we've done in the US is impossible to penetrate. Why? We are ahead of energy efficiency more than anybody else. In year 2000, we decided to do something unique. We bet that energy, somebody like David, and we're not in food processing then, but now we are, but somebody like Kevin would be paying more for energy efficient equipment. In 2000, we said to all our engineers in the company, every equipment that goes out of Middleby would be energy efficient. Every customer I went to, every customer said, Salim, nobody cares about energy. We care about speed, we care about all of that. This was year 2000. In fact, I tell that story many, many times. That same summer, Hummer introduced H2 at 9 miles a gallon. To prove me wrong, they sold a lot of them.
For a while.
For a long while, because I remember today, finally, Kevin will tell you, energy is a big thing for him. Finally, we are the most Energy Star rated ovens, fryers, steamers, combi ovens in the world. Why? Because we were there before anybody else. So we bet the company on something that's very unique. And very few of our competitors followed us then at that thing. And we'll talk about trans fat free oil and how we deal with that too, with our fryers, when nobody has followed us because we've been too early in that process.
Chris, what's the rest of the world mean to you? A supplier of fascinating products?
Yeah. We view it as an opportunity. Globalization for us is an opportunity, especially as different tastes develop in the United States. We view it as an opportunity to go overseas and source different products and find different things that may be appealing to the consumers here. And as consumers here are obviously more willing to experiment with the different tastes and looking for different taste profiles, as you know, immigrants become more traditionally second-generation immigrants, they're looking to familiarize themselves with some different products. It's opportunity for us to continue to grow, and we are always looking for new products to source from overseas to bring over here.
David.
My business is North America primarily, on a sales side of it. There is some supply coming from other parts of the country or other parts of the world. But I can make a few comments about the meat business around the world. There's many trade barriers in basic food components. Particularly, I'm most familiar with meat. There's all kinds of barriers going into China, going into Japan, going into Europe, all throughout. There's the raw material. I'm going down to Brazil Thursday. They've got a lot of cattle down there, but there's difficulty sometimes bringing a lot of that beef up here because of certain trade barriers and certain, in this particular case down in South America, there's some animal diseases that we don't want to introduce into our breed. But the bottom line, I think, is a tremendous amount of barriers that are there is really more of an issue in the meat side of the business. And the beef side, it's the big emerging markets. China is not a big beef producer or big beef consumer. A lot of pork, but it's in a lot of poultry, but it's out on a lot of different farms and so on and so forth. I think there's going to be opportunity for our processors, the Tysons, the Cargills, to actually put plants in those areas. I don't think there'll be much products moving from our shores over there. You're going to see American companies thriving in South America and other places.
Kevin, have you ever even considered a restaurant offshore?
No, we've done, not ones that we would own. We've done joint ventures in Japan. We've done some consulting deals in London and the UK. You know, we think a lot smaller. You know, we're not, the United States is pretty big. It's a great market for us. We have looked in the past couple years really at some of our smaller concepts that we get a lot of requests. Bao, for example, we get a lot of requests to franchise that. And I've visited with some countries, and I've visited some people in some countries overseas. We didn't feel it hit the franchise model just right yet. We're actually a little bit closer. We're thinking some changes we might do, but you know, when I think of the world I'd like to serve them, I don't necessarily think I have to be, you know, all over. We're not that. We're more simple-minded about doing what we do in our neighborhoods. My thoughts more about, it's amazing people how they've changed dining. It's, as Ron knows, they eat 24 hours a day now. They know it used to be 3 meal periods, now it's 24 hours. And your competition is everywhere. You know, there's grocery stores and 7-Elevens are getting better. You know, everybody's trying to get better at, you know, Menards, what you said. You start going into these places, now they're putting cafes in, they're putting coffee shops in. So everybody wants to compete and, you know, to get sort of a little bit more portion of their dining dollar, whatever that dining's going to be. So we just want to expand in that. But, you know, I wouldn't be shocked someday if we did some licensing agreement. We wouldn't manage overseas. We like to stay a little bit closer to our concepts. We have a lot of partners, and our partners stay where their concepts are.
Liam, am I correct? You're an Irish native, worked for a German company,
Right.
and now what's the
I'm
global impact on?
Completely mixed up there. Right. Actually, prior to joining Farleys, I spent, you know, almost 20 years growing brands for the Stork Company and Van Melle before it internationally. And I tell you, funnily enough, one of the learnings there, and I don't know who here might remember those goofy Mentos commercials from, you know, the middle 90s, Mentos, the fresh maker. I was unfortunately that guy. And
That guy.
you know, so as we talked on branding earlier, you know, this was a product, a 100-year-old brand that had remained the same over all of those years from a quality perspective, and had been priced down to try and keep revenue up. And that approach to branding developed sales at a compound rate of 40% a year over 7 years. So if we talk about branding, you know, there are very few companies that can claim to do it well in confections. But we learned that actually people love their children everywhere in the world, and in roughly the same manner. There are some exceptions. And so Mentos could become, at the same time, the #1 brand in Germany and in Spain and in England and in Japan and in Australia, as is the case with Werther's Original today, which is the last business I worked on for the last dozen years. Now that being said, the issue comes down again to local preferences, just as Salim said, and there are some very nuanced approaches to how you bring even a common product or something that you know, it looks very much like a global brand forward. Because the basic DNA of the brands are the same in those instances around the world. And there is a reason why very few companies have the ability to globalize their businesses, and the resources and the thought on the one side. It can be generations in the building, and it does again come back to distribution. And so I get asked this question, you know, all of the time at Farleys and Sailors. Hey, you're an international guy, right? You sound a little funny, much like Salim here. You know, we're going to grow. The agenda is international growth. I said, you know, it's on my radar screen, but I've been there and I got the T-shirt, and I can guarantee you, they are not waiting for us to succeed there. And so you need to know, you know, I mean, Werther's Original, a great example. You know, if you're selling Werther's in the Philippines, you mentioned it earlier, you're going to be selling it a single piece at a time, and that'll be a treat for an individual that will last them a week. And you're going to sell it off of the back of a bicycle in a pannier box, and it's street trade. And if you don't know how to capture those points of distribution, it doesn't matter how you feel about your brand, you cannot be in that business. And the folks that are able to do both, that can master the psychology of their brand on the one side, but also conquer the distribution, can have an international and in the end a global business. And I would argue, I mean, even the great companies here, you know, if you talk about a company like Hershey in our space, they have struggled for decades and have no meaningful presence beyond really North America. Walmart is a phenomenal company that got beaten in Germany and withdrew completely. Are a second runner in England and are really struggling. Even there, they're doing extremely well. Where culturally people treat their families the same way, they're doing extremely well in Latin America and whatever. But there is a lot to do before you can step into an international business. So
it's a long process.
It's a long process, and you know, cultural aspects come in very dynamically, and so the dots around the world are a big deal. And the company I last came from had 78 of those dots, and I spent a lot of my time traveling through those markets.
Liam, what is interesting is that the investment community doesn't give you credit for this.
No.
Unfortunately, when you look at it,
Damn it.
so it's
We're going to solve that right now.
Well,
I can tell you, it was fascinating. I remember when we started branching out, and at every analyst conference, people say, "Why are you spending so much time in China? Why don't you find a licensing partner?" Then, when we said, "No, we're going to do it on our own to protect the brand," exactly on what you were saying. At the end, you give it to somebody else. Then you just train somebody else, and then you're done. One day they cut off the cord, and you're done. And you're totally right. It's very difficult to be recognized, and it took us a long time. And hopefully, maybe in the next 10 years, those dots will give us some valuation that are better than we have.
I think so. Yeah, one of my mentors taught me that lesson early. He said, all partners share the same beginning and never the same end. And he would never get into partnerships for that.
well, speaking of ends, we're going to conclude the session on organic growth. We touched on a couple of different facets of it. Before we do get off the subject entirely, though, did anybody have we're going to have questions at the very end, but anybody have a burning issue that had to be addressed while we're still thinking of organic growth? Organic growth. I knew there'd be one. Loudly.
Yeah, do you see sort of a slow food movement or even local movement affecting sort of constant deglobalization in terms of food sourcing?
You know, there's, I can make a comment on within the meat industry not too long ago, about 2 years ago, there was something called country of origin labeling. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but in my mind, it was a fiasco. It was a government mandated labeling that created a lot of extra expense and confusion. You'll buy ground beef that says this animal was born in Canada, it was raised in Mexico, and slaughtered in the United States. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
What was its name?
Yeah, what's it say? But, so I think that, you know, the idea was you know, obviously to buy American goods, and it should have been done voluntarily if it was important to the consumer, not mandated by the government. I mean, that's local from the United States, and I know that there's issues, particularly with imported products from China, you know, and in some other areas. I mentioned down in South America, there's some countries that have states within those countries that have hoof and mouth disease that, you know, there's a lot of concerns about some of those things. So there is some protection from imported products, you know, so.
And from my perspective, it's like 52 other niche-y little trendy things out there. It bears watching. It's there. Some people are trying to take a pulse of that. And certainly the tainted products, the ingredients that were coming in from China 2 years ago did a lot to help that. But I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't found traction. I mean, there's a lot of people doing a buy local and, you know, farmers market type things, but it doesn't seem to have created the impact that I thought it would have created 2 years ago.
Oh, you have a distribution issue, you have a safety issue sometimes,
Yeah.
but also you have a seasonality issue.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get it all the time for all your stores, so I think it fills a niche. I don't think it is the concept. I think it's just difficult to do until you can get distribution and get the suppliers and, you know, have the reliability of it. So, but the guest loves it. And, you know, when Lay's Potato Chips is putting out where their farmers are from across the country, you know, these are all of our potato farmers, it tells you people are interested in it. And we're trying to do it more and more. But it will never be primary. In fact, it will be hard to be secondary. It'll be additive. At some time, maybe it'll get bigger. But I think just to be able to get enough product on a regular basis, you know, it's just a little hard to do right now.
I think there's one additional point to what you said. I'd build and say that there's a cost component. Because most processors are set up to mass produce, and local for local is an issue that most people broadly don't want to pay for. You know, beyond the restaurant concept, if we talk about Lay's, it's a lot of positioning work to give you the impression that potatoes are sourced from this or that community, and in the end, if the message is, look, we make this wonderful local for local in every zip code and you're going to pay 3 times more for it, it doesn't work out so good, funnily enough. And this is an important point because it's, you know, the cost of doing business that way is works great for a restaurant, but not so good for broadly distributed branded products.
Greg, you want to take over and give us?
We're going to just try and keep a break to 5 minutes. You know, at the most, maybe take a minute or two more, but give everybody a chance to get up, turn around, talk to somebody, use the facilities. And we're coming back. We have a few minutes of mergers, acquisitions, transaction data for you to lead us off into really where some of that opportunity exists for these guys, this company, and the markets they're addressing. So love to have you do that. One minor point, important point, if you're putting dots around the countries as they're talking about, what's not on our website, but what we are doing is working with the Argentine government on a trade mission next Monday and Tuesday. The ambassador will be in Monday morning. If anybody's interested in meeting him or any of the 30 companies, which I think 6 or 7 are food companies, please see me, or there's some personal information, invitation information at the desk.